Hello, and welcome back to the Point Left podcast with your hosts,
Skyler
and Kaylynne. Yes, today is a very exciting episode. Today I am reading Skyler's chart.
I am nervous.
We are going deep into the zodiac. I would love to preface this. Just to start off, I am not a professional astrologer. I'm barely a hobbyist. Many of these things I had to go online. I had books that I referenced. Like, this was not, a lot of this was not knowledge that I previously had. But I do love and appreciate astrology. I know a lot of people like don't really believe in it, and I think for a long time I was like, yeah, haha, no, me either. It's just like fun. But I do believe in it a little bit. I believe in it a little bit, just because, like, honestly, every single person's chart who I have dissected, like, it makes so much sense. It makes so much sense. And it was actually funny when I read my dad's chart one time, and I was like reading it off, and my dad was like, that's not even true. And then my stepmom was like, yeah, it is. Like, that's like God. Dead on. And he was like, So yeah, just to preface this, if any of this is like inaccurate, sorry to anyone who's like an actual astrologer. I am simply a hobbyist.
I'm really excited for this too, because I don't know shit about dick when it comes to astrology. I know that like anything that it like predominantly like women enjoy, it's seen as like frivolous and dumb and like stupid and made up, and like what isn't?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and there's different types of astrology. There's Vedic astrology, which is I believe predominantly used in Hindu like religion. And then I don't know the name of the other astrology, but the other astrology is the one that's like most commonly used. It's like your natal chart. And it's like when you go on CoStar, like that's the other type of astrology. So they both say different things about the different signs, which is interesting. And they actually, did you ever watch Indian Matchmaker on Netflix?
No.
There's a part where one of the guys like goes to an astrologer, and they're like reading like the Vedic astrology, and it's just really interesting. It's really fascinating.
I'm also excited for this too, because like I know enough. So, quick spoiler alert, I'm an Aquarius. That's all I know. I don't know much about, like, I wrote it down that, like, my sun, my moon.
Yeah, I'm like, did you know, like, your big three previous?
I knew my one. And that's
because,
you
just
like,
knew your sun. Okay.
I think if I like, connected more with what a lot of people say about Aquarius people, then I would get more into astrology on my own. Like, if
you don't think you connect with Aquarius?
Sometimes, like, I was saying, like, I connect, like, to some of it. Like, a lot of it was just, like, this is where, like creative people are Aquarius. Like, you tend to be, like, more open-minded. You tend to be, have, like, fun energy. But a lot of times they're, like, and you also tend to be, like, self-isolating, and you prefer to your alone time, and you know, don't like being highly emotional in front of people. And I was like, okay, well, those three do not apply to me, so I'm just not going to look any deeper. Like, a lot of times you'd be like, Aquariuses do this, and I'd be like, I guess maybe. Like, I think, like, if I read like a horoscope thing, or like Aquarius did this, and I'm like, that's so true, bestie. Yeah. What else can you say about me? But I would always get like a 50-50 of like the super vague, like, Aquarius just do this, from like when I was, you know, middle high school. So I haven't really looked too deep into this, so I straight up have no clue what any of this means about me.
So
I'm about, like, I'm either gonna get like read for filth, or I'm gonna be sit here all smug like Ben Shapiro.
Yeah.
And be like, actually.
Yeah, I'm like, you'll have to let me know like what you connect with, and
Okay.
and what doesn't connect for you. I'm very interested. The reason why I'm so fascinated by astrology is because I think, as you guys are gonna hate me, as a Virgo,
I don't know what that means. You keep saying this, and I don't know what it means. I don't know what being a Virgo means. All I know is being a Scorpio is kind of like, ooh, because it sounds like scorpion.
Yeah,
That's all I got. All I have.
Virgos are very analytical and like organized, and I think that like Virgos very often look from a perspective of logic, and honestly sometimes like struggle to like look from a perspective of like emotions and such, but
yeah.
but
Word.
But as a Virgo, I'm very analytical, and I love like reading people's charts, and like I just feel like it tells you a lot about people. I think it can kind of shed a lot of light on like the ways that people are, and like the behaviors that they exhibit, and like the way that they like process certain things. Like I think it can just tell you a lot about like the differences between people. And like literally earlier today I was talking like one of our friends, I was like, oh well, like she's, you know, this sign, so like that makes so much sense that like this is how she's like handling the situation. And everyone's like, Kaylynne, shut up, like it's not like it's fine. But anyway, yeah, let's get into it because we have a lot to discuss.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
I'm about 6 to like pages.
This feels very like you're Dr. Phil,
yeah,
and I'm like the poor chap in the seat being like, oh.
And feel free to like jump in whenever. I don't want this to be like me just like talking at you. So yeah, feel free to jump in. So let's get started with your big three. Okay. So anyone who doesn't know, your big three is like your sun, your moon, and your rising / ascendant. And those signs are kind of like the core of your personality. It's your sun is like your ego and your overall sense of self. It's like what most people relate to. It's like, you know, the month that you're born in. And then your moon is more your subconscious with like your emotions and your mood and your feelings. And then your ascendant or your rising is like the mask that you present to people. So sometimes, and this isn't true to all things, because I'm a Scorpio rising, but I do think I connect more with my sun sign as far as like how I come across to people. Usually whenever I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a Virgo, people are like, oh, like that makes sense, like that tracks. But your ascendant is like the mask that you present to people. So it's so often people will like they might ask if you're a certain sign and it's not your sun sign, but like that might be your ascendant or your rising. So your big three is your sun is in Aquarius. You actually, your chart, you have so much like Aquarius. So much of your chart is like in Aquarius. It's kind of crazy. Your moon is Gemini and your ascendant is Scorpio.
I can't wait for you to tell me what this means.
Besties. So again, your sun sign's like your core. It's like your ego and your overall sense of self. Aquarius is an air sign, and these air signs, the air signs are Aquarius, Gemini, and Libra.
Ain't that some bullshit that Aquarius is air?
I know. It does feel like it should be water.
It's honestly,
just because like aqua.
It gives me the vibe of like Kansas City, Missouri. Where it's like, oh.
It's misleading.
Yeah.
It's like linguistically misleading.
Yes.
Yeah, so the other air signs are Gemini, Libra, and then Aquarius, of course. So air signs are known for being inspirational and communicative. Your ruling planet is Uranus, and the color, it's interesting. So each sign has like a different color that relates to them, and Aquarius is the rainbow. Aquarius is literally like all of the fucking colors. Gay.
Gay, you are gay. She's indecisive. Can't pick a color.
So Aquarius is the rainbow, which is really interesting. And then you've heard of like the age of Aquarius, right?
No.
Really?
The saying, I think I must have heard it once, but shit about dick if I know what it means.
Interesting. So the age of Aquarius is kind of a phrase that is commonly used. Well, it like is a time, like there are actual times where like we are in the age of Aquarius or whatever. But it's used to kind of foretell a shift like beyond technological and medical innovations. And it's kind of like a general like cultural and like communal shift, typically in like beliefs and philosophy. So like the 60s is known as like the age of Aquarius.
I love the 60s. What are you saying to me?
Yeah. Well, because that was like a huge shift of like
everything.
Yes. Of everything. And like of a lot of, you know, that's where like hippies came about. And like there was a collective like shift in people's mindsets during that time. So that's like the age of Aquarius. Aquarius is a masculine sign. So all the signs are either masculine or feminine. And masculine signs are typically more assertive and extroverted. They're leaders, pioneers, and visionaries. So Aquarians are not like other girls.
Oh
like,
my God.
Like that's kind of like the core of an Aquarius is like your individuality complex is strong. Like it is strong. So Aquarians are typical outcasts, but not necessarily in the way of like they're fucking losers. Like they're outcasts in the way.
And they can be. All right. They can be fucking losers. Don't get me wrong.
Like they're not necessarily isolating themselves. I think that's why when you say because people do sometimes say that Aquarians can be very like isolating and kind of detached in that way. And I don't think that's true for all Aquarians. I do think it kind of depends on like the rest of your chart. But Aquarians are outcasts and they love like being different. Actually, a lot of Aquarians, in fact, thrive in large groups. And they're not necessarily isolating in like a social way, but isolating in a way where like they're like you have to be different from other people. But Aquarians are charming, quick-witted, and Aquarians are known for having like a plethora of like fun facts or like
shut the fuck up. I'm not even fucking serious.
I know that's why when you were like, I don't really connect to being an Aquarius, I was like, are you fucking sure? If you don't know, she has like a fucking steel trap of a brain that just knows every fact about half the fucking podcast that we do. I have to do like all this research and I have to like reference my notes because I can't fucking remember anything. And she's like, oh yeah, this thing that I learned like 12 years ago, and then like goes in depth about it. And I'm like, what? Like how do you know this? But this is why
is it hot in here?
this is why Aquarians can be really like intriguing to people. So often the isolation that Aquarians feel is like self-imposed in a way where like you may feel like you struggle to connect with others on like a true deep level because people can't relate to you because you're so different from other people. And due to your like like due to your innate like contrarianism. You try to be weird, you know, like you want to be different. You really, the individuality complex it's big. So your moon, let's move into your moon. That was your sun. So your moon is in Gemini. Okay. And again, this is like your subconscious, your emotions, your feelings. So this is kind of like internal. So again, your moon is an air sign, again, Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. So you react to changing experiences with keen judgment and objective evaluation. You feel most aligned with your inner self when you're expressing ideas and interacting socially. So again, like that social butterfly kind of element comes in with your moon as well. So because your moon is in Gemini, your emotional self is often restless and unsettled. You're extremely adaptable, which sometimes can make you feel like you're pulled in too many directions. And you may struggle to feel like a true sense of identity because your identity shifts based on who you're surrounded with and like the people that you are around.
Come the fuck on.
So you can become easily bored and you feel like you have to be free and creative to create like meaning in your life. So yeah, you have this like constant identity crisis. And this is so do you know anything like about Geminis, like the two-faced aspect?
Nar.
Okay.
I know, like, again, like maybe a little bit of pop culture, but like, I just know that Gemini means like two.
Yeah.
So, like, I put two and two together.
Geminis get like a really bad rap. I love Geminis. I love Geminis. And it's because they're so easily adaptable. But Geminis typically get a bad rap because they're known for being like two-faced.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Because like, here's the problem. Not me bringing this back to a Taylor Swift lyric, but it's just like, because my, remember that ex-friend? She kind of threw this line at me from a Taylor Swift song where it's like, a friend to all is
Taylor Swift.
Yes, a friend to all is a friend to none. So she's like, if you get along with everybody, like, then you're not actually close with anybody. And I'm like,
which I don't think is true about you, by the way. Should be noted.
I do have like a knee-jerk reaction to like never actually be it's the Midwestern urge to be agreeable.
Yeah.
To be polite. Even with someone, like, someone could be saying the most out-of-pocket shit. And if, like, if they're, like, a stranger or, like, whatever, I would have to be pissed off to, like, say something.
Yeah.
Like, I think I saw, like, a guy, this was, like, months ago, but a guy was, like, heckling, like, a woman in hijab, and I rolled down my window, and I was like, stop being a fucking asshole! And, like, honked and whatever. But I had to keep driving because I was going on the highway. But like if I'm in an elevator with someone and they say something like, "Oh, pronouns," I'll just go,
Yeah.
like I won't say anything. I won't be like, and you know what? That's whatever. Or even if like, you know, I obviously my friends, I'll just kind of, I tend, if my friend says something that I disagree with, I tend to just let it go and change the subject because I'm like, oh, what's the point?
This will come later in the chart. So I'm so glad you said that. Yeah, but you might you might struggle to feel grounded in like your quote unquote like true identity because your identity can kind of adapt to different scenarios. So that's kind of where like the two-facedness comes in with the Gemini. But I don't think that's always a negative thing. I actually think it's a very good trait to be easily adaptable. Okay, so moving on to your ascendant / rising. They mean the same thing. They're just, people call them different things. So your ascendant is in Scorpio, but it's on the cusp. So on the cusp basically means the how your chart is read is it's like a circle, and each sign gets a different portion of the circle, and depending on like where the stars are or whatever, like your ascendant, there's like math involved and stuff. There's like different degrees that like your signs are at and things like that. So your ascendant is like right on the cusp of Scorpio and Sagittarius. So I did include a little bit of Sagittarius in here as well, just because I think you will relate to it a little bit more than like the full Scorpio, but I do think there are some Scorpio elements that you can relate to as well. And I fucking know all of you haters are going to be like, well, like this isn't real astrology if you have to like adapt it to these things. But it's like the cusps matter because you've influence from both signs. Then like of course you're not going to completely align with one sign because you're missing the other half. Anyway. So again,
Don't even get her started.
So again, this is like the mask that you present to people. This might be how people like first categorize you. It's your ascendant is thought to influence like your personal style and like how you come across to people. It's known as like your social personality. So Scorpios are socially magnetic and tend to lean towards the extremes. So Scorpio risings are typically either like really quiet and like mysterious. I feel like that's kind of like the typical Scorpio, or you're very loud and magnetic. And there's very little in between. Like you are not going to find a Scorpio rising who like is kind of in between. It's either going to be like quiet and mysterious, which is like I think what Scorpios are like most known for. But Scorpios can also be like on the other extreme as well.
God, I've wanted to be mysterious for so long and I just can't seem to close my mouth. I'm in a room and I'm like, oh, today I'll be like the mysterious like newcomer. Instead I'm like, hey guys, do you want to see my Polly Pocket collection?
This one's the chewiest. But Scorpio, sorry, I just said like 50 times. So sorry, guys. Oh my God. Sorry, now I'm like catching myself doing it. Scorpios are naturally intuitive. So this is like Scorpios are known for being more like dark and mysterious. They're like one of the most intense signs. But it's just like they can pick up a vibe. Like a Scorpio can pick up a vibe. Stick with your gut. It's usually leading you on the right path. So with this Sagittarius cusp, so I think the Sagittarius part is what influences your style more and kind of like your outward appearance, where you might relate more to the Scorpio ascending with like your social personality. But a Sagittarius rising style is typically lots of like bright colors. You're not afraid of patterns. You love like an orange or a purple.
The fuck?
Yeah.
The fuck?
Yeah. Well, because the Scorpio,
colors, by the way, for the audio listeners.
The Scorpio risings, their style tends to be a little more like subdued. It's much more like minimalist and like, like more structure based, which I was reading that and I'm like, this doesn't seem right. So that's why I went back to your chart and I'm like, oh, she's a cusper. And then, so I think that's where kind of the Sagittarius cusp, influences you is in the style, and then you get the Scorpio with like your social personality. So those are the big three. Those are the ones that like if you don't know, or like if you know your sun sign, like those are the ones that people talk about the most, but there's also so much more in your chart because there are all the other planets, right? So now we're going to go into the other planets and how those placements kind of influence how you are. So Mercury determines your communication. Okay. It's how you talk, think, and process information. It's known as like the mind's planet. So your Mercury is in Aquarius. Again, you have so much Aquarian in you. So Mercury and Aquarius people make the best companions, the best of guests. They always have something interesting to say. Their perspective is very unique, and they're going to offer a differing perspective to situations, but also while being like non-judgmental and being very open-minded. So like, yes, you introduce new perspectives to people, but like you also love listening to other people's perspectives as well. Your perspectives are delightfully unusual, quirky, and surprisingly insightful.
Not quirky.
Quirky. You're not argumentative. In fact, you love hearing different perspectives from your own because you understand that accepting new perspectives is only going to expand your own. You're very forward thinking. You might contemplate on the future a lot, not just of yourself, but also like your friends and family. And you give the best advice because your perspectives are so unique. You can often provide clarity to people's problems and provide a perspective that they might have never even considered without you. How are we feeling?
So far, I have to be honest, you're kind of reading me like a book. I'll keep it a buck. There's never been anything so far where I've been like, I mean, kind of. So far, you're like, and also this. Boom. And this. Boom. Getting like shot with arrows. Oh my God.
So your Venus is also an Aquarius. And your Venus determines how and what you love. It indicates how you express affection and also the qualities that you are attracted to. So Aquarius rules friendships and groups. So your friends and your relationships mean everything to you. You believe in the power and inspiration of people everywhere. Again, like you probably surround yourself with a lot of differing perspectives. You're social and outgoing, and you feel most alive when you're with friends. And you might find yourself falling for people who you already know. For the listeners, Skyler just walked away. She exited the premises. Well, because you need that friendship element in a relationship. So it's like if you start as friends with someone, it can be easy to kind of blend into that more romantic development. You're really concerned with finding someone intellectually compatible,
yes.
But not too similar because, again, you're an Aquarius. You have to be your own individual.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, and you know that relationships don't last when they're not built on the foundation of friendship. So that's why like that aspect is so important. Mm-hmm. So your Mars is, it's known as the planet of aggression. It kind of determines how you like assert yourself, how you take action. And it also has to do with like your sex life, but I'm not really going to go into that.
We can do that in the extended version.
Yeah.
Available to
in the
my
extended
ears.
cut. And it can talk about like your ambitiousness and also how you handle yourself when you're angry. So your Mars is in Scorpio. Again, Scorpios are like a very intense sign. They're mesmerizing, and you're drawn to charisma in others and sometimes intense scenarios. You're passionate and you crave activities that take you deep into a subject. So you're going to find yourself going down like internet rabbit holes way too fucking often. You have to be passionate about what you're doing in order to pursue it. And once you find something that sparks your passion, you're all in. You are not afraid of a challenge if it's something that like you're really driven to do. And you can withstand pressure, again, as long as it's something that like you are passionate about. If it's something that you don't care about that much, like that may kind of be where you falter. Yeah, a little bit.
And the sometimes outwardly pressure can make me work hard, like threat of not having money, threat of having no home. No food. Then I will.
So fair.
Then I will do tasks that I don't want to do for fear of dying.
Yeah, so fair. So
However,
fair. But you're a very passionate person, and that's kind of how you like assert yourself and take action. So it's like when there is a topic that like you are really interested in, or like a situation that like might get you really heated or something, like you are all in. You are very passionate about that. So we're going to go into Jupiter and Saturn. I'm going to kind of group them together because they're the two social planets. So your Jupiter placement indicates how like generosity and optimism manifests itself in yourself, while on the other side, Saturn represents like your insecurities. So like they're partners, but they're kind of the opposite in that way. So your Jupiter is in Pisces and your Saturn is in Aries. So Jupiter in Pisces. So Pisces is the sign of like spirituality, and Jupiter is the planet of philosophy and religion. So when you like put those two together, it can create a really deeply spiritual person. And not necessarily like within religion, like it could just be like your connection to the universe, or like the energy of the world, or you know, however, or it could just be like a general like interest in like spirituality and exploring things like that. You're very open-minded. You don't really see like right and wrong perspectives, especially when it comes to like religion and philosophy, because you realize that like we are all connected to the same sense of spirit, even if like the specific paths that we choose to take, or like the religions and teachings that we follow are different. Like we still are all just like human at the end of the day and connect.
I guess that makes sense. I think the only time that I can definitely see like a definite right and wrong, especially now that I'm getting older, is like politically. Like you can only be so tolerant for so long, and like you can only see other people's perspectives for so long, and then you hear like a batshit take and you're like, no, you are incorrect.
You are simply wrong. You love to help others. A lot of people with these placements might find themselves in like philanthropic endeavors. And again, you give good advice. You don't like disregard. You don't disregard others' problems as their own. Instead, you're eager to help those around you and to help heal and like help people reach a happier place. Like you're not just gonna be like, oh, that sucks. Yeah. Like you take it upon yourself to like really try and help that person and make sure that like after a conversation with you, they end up in a better place.
Oh yeah. I mean, What am I gonna? Yeah.
Yeah.
What else am I here for?
Some people don't. Some people don't.
Word.
The only downside with this Pisces placement is that sometimes you might be too idealistic. You can easily get your head in the clouds, or your expectations can easily get too high. And then obviously if like those expectations aren't met, you can be easily crushed. So it's really important to like ground yourself and make sure that like, although it's good to be optimistic and idealistic, like you still have to have that sense of like realism and reality tied into it.
This is like now like how often I have to bring up on this podcast the concept of you're like being too idealistic and then setting your standards up too high and then getting disappointed. Where do you think I got that from? First-hand experience, baby. And this even like, not to keep bringing it back to like politically, but I do like I think also like certain external factors definitely play a part here. Like I think sometimes I'm like I can be too like naive with how cruel the world is, and then I just like choose to look for the good in things because I'm like, what else am I gonna do? Wallow in pity and like despair. But I also think like constant internet access has probably turned me more into like of a pessimistic, judgmental asshole than I maybe would have if not constantly exposed to like the worst news that humanity can offer. Yeah,
that's so true.
But yeah, and like in person to person, I am that way. When I scroll on Twitter, that's a different human being. I'm way more.
We are not the same.
We are not the same. Me on my Twitter handle and I don't know her.
Your Saturn. So your Saturn again has to do with like how you experience insecurities and how you seek out security. So your Saturn is in Aries. So this is why I was like, this will come later in your chart. You don't always feel comfortable asserting yourself or acting in an egotistical or self-centered manner. You love to avoid confrontation. And you can let fear hold you back sometimes. Because sometimes you feel like it's better to just not try something and not have to fail than for the potential to try it and fail, because you hate showing weakness. And the idea of failing, especially in front of people or in like a public way, would ruin you.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
yeah. So you're not super comfortable with confrontation or asserting yourself in that way.
I'm about to go full peanut butter baby.
So Uranus is in Aquarius. Your placement in Uranus is telling of how.
I'm sorry, I'm like literally 5 years old.
Stop. The placement of your anus.
Sorry.
It can be telling of how you express yourself creatively. Again, Aquarius is like one of the most creative signs. You're a free thinker and an independent soul who likes to dance to the beat of your own drum. You are great at brainstorming and coming up with really unique ideas and solutions. When you embrace your tendency to shake things up, you can often influence people around you, and people will follow your lead. Again, Aquarius is an air sign, and it's a sign that is like indicative of a leader. Your intentions have to be in the right place, though, because if you see something that you want torn down, you can easily wreak havoc on a social structure. Use your power wisely. If you couldn't tell, that last like a couple of sentences came directly from a website. But I liked the wording. I liked the phrasing.
So like that kind of makes it seem like I have enough of like a grip on the people around me that if I'm like, hey, you two should break up, they'd be like, fuck, maybe we should.
Kind of. I think it's more in like creative ways. I guess, because it can be like a creative solution. So it might just be like, oh, you should break up, but you might like bring a different like perspective to that person, and then it would then help them to like understand that in that way.
Okay. All right. We're going good so far.
Your Neptune is also an Aquarius.
Damn it!
So Neptune placements influence how we connect with others and how we can inspire one another. You love having friends. You're definitely not a loner or someone who like really struggles to connect with others. Like, again, you're very adaptable, so you can connect with people pretty easily. And then Neptune also allows you like access to it says like your internal realms, but you can be very like contemplative in that way. And again, like your intuition is very strong. Like you may instantaneously like pick up on a vibe that other people might not notice, and you should really like lean into that. Like if something feels wrong, leave it. If it feels right, dive in. Your Neptune in Aquarius can grant you a deep sense of knowing that goes beyond what your mind can explain. You intuitive bitch.
No, yeah. One of my great sins, honestly, is my belief in like, bitches love nuance. So like I always get like a if I get like a feeling about someone, I'm just like, they can't just be that one thing, right? Or if someone does something that pisses me off, again, this is all like interpersonal, right? If a celebrity does something that pissed me off, I'm like, you're done.
Yeah.
You're done. I have no stake in you. But like if someone in my like actual real life does something that pisses me off, I'm just like, whatever. I'll file it away in the category of things that I don't like, and I'll probably add something to the category of things that I do like, and it probably like balances out. And you know, you're very like nuanced person, instead of just being like, I'm really bad at making snap judgments, and I'm really bad at giving people more chances than they deserve. Because I'm like, oh, what?
Yeah. So maybe that's something that just reading can help you with. Sorry.
Yes,
I feel like I need my crystal ball in front of me. But yeah, like learn to trust your gut, because it's usually right. Like you can sense a vibe. Like you can pick up on like those energies. Your Pluto is in Sagittarius. Pluto is associated with Hades in Greek mythology. Because
it is. Like,
yes.
Pluto is
Hades
in Roman.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. So this the planet in like astrological terms is kind of like where you keep all of your taboo or like secret emotions, thoughts, or desires. So these might be things that like other people, you know, like wouldn't know about you. And then this placement can also represent like power dynamics, obsessions, and even like destructiveness internally. So with your Pluto and Sagittarius, you're likely interested in philosophy, and you love talking about how shifts in our beliefs can make the world a better place. You're optimistic and you drive to live for your personal truth. You're wise beyond your years and are comfortable leading in social situations. You should take care to stay connected to the experiences of others, because with your like natural intuitiveness and clarity in that way, it can be easy for you to slip into feelings of like superiority, or even frustration when like people can't keep up with you in that way. And that can be very frustrating. So it's important to remember we're all on our own journey and we all have our own lessons. So stay compassionate, stay kind, stay humble, and everything in your life will benefit from remembering that.
I've said that like one of my things that I know, like my least favorite things about myself is that I tend to like plow over others with like, I'm so loud. And if we're like doing like a group setting, like I tend to just like get so encouraged and like riled up, and I'll go home and like, stop talking about yourself too much, or stop like injecting yourself so much into other people's like lives.
Yeah. It can be very, it's like those, I think we were talking about this last week, where it's like those situations where you're like trying to relate to someone by being like, oh, I've had a similar experience, but then you just end up talking about yourself when like that person really just needs comfort in this moment, and like they don't need you to like talk about that. So that might have something to do with your Pluto placement. So these next signs are honestly things that I was not familiar with at all, really. Like I'd heard about them, but I didn't really know what they meant. I didn't know
Deluxe
like what these
edition.
what these like represented in astrology. So I'm gonna start with the North Node and South Node. So similar. I didn't really talk about this, but with your rising, you also have a descendant sign. And honestly, I think I just kind of forgot to like go into it, but, your descendant often isn't shown on charts because it's just the direct opposite of your, rising sign. So similar with North and South Node, the South Node often isn't shown on your chart because it's just directly opposite from your North Node. So your North Node is in Leo and your South Node is in Aquarius. So these are said to represent like your life's purpose, and the lessons that like your soul needs to learn in this lifetime in order to grow spiritually. So these are kind of like, again, I'm not gonna like shit on astrology or anything. Like obviously I really enjoy astrology, but like I feel like these are kind of the aspects of things where people are a little like, okay, how can like how the stars were aligned when you were born indicate like what your future has to hold. So I take this with a grain of salt because this is a little more like future based and like lifetime like predictions, and it's not really like your internal being as much. But the North Node represents like the experiences that we have to work on to develop in order to work with our karma and to grow spiritually. The North Node in Leo and South Node in Aquarius suggests that you need to focus more on Leo and less on Aquarius because the energy of Aquarius is very familiar to you. You have, especially with your chart, you have so much Aquarius that it might be beneficial to lean more into some of the other energies of the signs. So North Node in Leo suggests that you love being around others, you enjoy being part of different organizations and associations, you like teamwork, and you're great at networking and connecting with like-minded people.
Maybe not networking. The idea of networking sends a chill down my spine. Here's the thing. Like, I think that one of the other things that, like, is preventing me a lot from, like, your work ethic is, like, yes, indeed, when I want to work.
Yeah.
But, like, I think, where's the lazy bitch star that I was born under? Where's the want to take a naposaurus that I was in my chart? And, like, all of this is true. Like, if I'm genuinely passionate about what I want to do, like, I tend to, like, that is how I work. But where's the sleepy bitch star? Where's the take a nap bear?
That might just be you. No,
the stars cannot explain your laziness.
That is a learned tendency. No, I'm kidding. So with this as well, with the Leo in your North Node, or I guess your North Node in Leo would be the correct phrasing of that.
God forbid.
I know. Sorry guys. Sometimes you have a tendency to be really concerned with what other people think about you. So you tend to be really anxious and worry about like groups' opinions of you. So again, it could be those situations where like when you're in a social situation, you're like having a good time, everything's great. And then you get home and you're like, oh, fuck. Like, oh my God, they all hate me. Like, why did I say that? Like, you know, things like that. So there's a tendency to be worried about like how people perceive you. Which, I mean, frankly, I feel like everyone is a little bit.
I'm like, oh my God, that's so me. And it's like, this sign breathes air. I'm like, how did you
Oh my God, that's
know?
me.
How would they know that?
So moving on to the South Node. The South Node in Aquarius suggests that you may be susceptible to peer pressure. So be cautious of who you surround yourself with, just because you can often be greatly influenced by the people who you choose to have around you. And it's important to keep your own objectives and morals at the forefront of your mind.
Yeah.
Your joy often brings joy to others. There we go. So it's important for people with the North Node and Leo to do what makes them happy, figure out what makes you happy, and don't live for what other people like expect of you. And this is also something that like can shift. And honestly, with a lot of these placements, the way that they are like represented throughout your life can shift, as you grow older. I don't remember which one it is. I think it's your rising sign, is said to, it can sometimes become less relevant like the older you get. But when you're young, many people with North Node and Leo have low self-confidence, but as time passes by and you learn to express yourself more freely, you will gain happiness in that way.
Shit. Ow.
Moving on. So, your Chiron is in Sagittarius. And this, Chiron symbolizes the wounded healer. So it exposes like our pain that we have and maybe the way that we address those pains and the healing powers that we have like within us. So it can symbolize the strength of vulnerability, encouraging us to embrace the darkness of our past and to take action to heal from that. So with your Chiron and Sagittarius, you have a tendency to be blunt and outspoken. So choose your words wisely. You might seek meaning in your profession. And that might be a source of identity for you. You have a Jesus Christ, sorry guys. You have a desire.
Chiron.
You have a desire to explore new ideas, and you do so enthusiastically. You have deep compassion for others, as well as a belief that everyone deserves equity. You may be passionate about politics and social issues. The Chiron and Sagittarius personality is introspective and philosophical. You have a highly developed sense of higher consciousness and spirituality. So this next one, and this is our last one, and your whole chart will have been read. So your MC, which is also called your midheaven.
Not MC.
MC stands for medium Cheli or Chelai. It's pronounced either way, or which means middle of heaven. So it's sometimes called like your midheaven. And it is in Virgo. And this speaks to your career, your ambitions. And again, it's kind of like futuristic, like the legacy that you're meant to leave behind. So with your midheaven in Virgo, you are, you have an attention to detail and a perspective that allows you to balance like broad scoping ideas with the details that are like required to accomplish them. You go out of your way to help others in need, and you can remain humble. And that's kind of all on that one, because again, these are like these last three, I just really do not know that much about them. So yeah, I don't have a ton of insight other than what I found on the internet. So sorry, guys. But I think with your midheaven in Virgo, as it speaks to your career and your ambitions, like you're a very ambitious person. And again, like when it's something that you are passionate about, you are very detail oriented, and you can look at the steps that it will take to get you to where you want to be, and how to achieve those goals. Yeah.
I'm just like a barbecued little thing that has had lightning struck it like 50,000 times in a row, and now it's just like this crumbling piece of dust. It's like, what do you think? And it's like, oh my god.
Yeah, how do we feel? I mean, was there anything that like didn't speak to you? Anything? Because I feel like there were probably a couple moments where you're like, I don't know if this really like aligns with me.
Honestly, not really. And like that's you did good job. Round 1, you know, like you kind of knocked this MF out of the park. I think it's because like honestly, I tend to have a lot of not low self-image, where I tend to be like very critical of myself, and so a lot of them like the things that I maybe like didn't super agree with, you're like, and you're like a good friend, and I'm like, am I though?
Oh yeah, I see
like,
what you mean.
And you work really hard. I'm like, do I though? And like you're really like you're a really good listener. I'm like, but I'm a failure.
No.
And so like I think those are the only times where I was like, okay, like maybe, but I think that's just like my own like hypercritical like evil self being super mean to me. That kind of less adherent to that. I don't know, like that shit was kind of crazy.
Do you feel like it provided and it like did it change your perspective on yourself at all, or like provide any insight into like your own personality? Because I know when I like read my chart, I don't know, I felt like for me when I read my own chart, it was very telling of like, oh, this is why I behave in these ways, and this is why, because I think sometimes, especially, I'm sorry I keep fucking bringing up the fact that I'm a Virgo, I'm so sorry, but I'm gonna do it again. But like being a Virgo, I think especially like growing up there were often times where like, I know this sounds stupid, but like I felt too mature for my age, or I felt like too analytical and too like cold in a sense, where I was like, why am I not able to like relate to people who are like so deeply emotional and who like process their thoughts and feelings through like, for example, like crying or something like that. Like that was something that I can't really relate to because I'm such an analytical person. I very much like look at certain things in my life and like, yes, of course I have emotions and I cry and like things like that. But like, I look at certain things that happen in my life and I think I'm able to have a perspective of like, well, this is just a part of my life. And like, you know, logically, I have so much of my life ahead of me, you know, hopefully, that like this small part in 10 years won't really matter that much. And it's in fact like shaping me to who, like I just like analyze situations like that. And like when I read my chart, I was like, oh, like it's not because I'm like a fucking sociopath and I like and I just like can't connect to people like emotionally in that way. I'm like, it's because I'm a Virgo and I just like tend to be more analytical, and maybe that's something that I can work on with leaning more into like some of the other aspects of my chart that could help balance that out more, you know.
No, I think a lot of this was just me like nodding along, me like, you right. A lot of it felt very much like, oh, okay, I'm not just like it made things kind of click into which like, oh, that's like a pattern of people and not just me being like a random flighty whatever. I think the most insightful part of all of this, again, is like you answered a question that I had about like in general like the Aquarius like vibes, being like, here you're, you know, the pros and cons of being an Aquarius, and cons is like isolating. And I remember being like, this is so dumb. Like, I literally hate being alone. Like, I hate being by myself because then the bad thoughts kick in. And I'm like, I remember being like, oh, so that's why, like, I can't relate to this. But you being like, no, it's like a self-imposed isolation. I'm like, yeah. Because, like, I would definitely feel like, you know, when you get super into your feelings in, like, middle school or high school, and you definitely just be like, oh my God, like, I'm like, no one will ever be able to understand me, or like no one actually knows the real me.
Because, my like, true identity.
Yeah, because like I chameleon in everything. Who I am at work and who I am with this friend is different than who I am with this friend, and I was never like really consistent because I always felt like I had to like ride the wave of the vibe in the room. That I was always like, I don't even think like
your
no one
intuitiveness.
Literally, I was like, no one really knows like the real me, and like no one is like. I'm like alone and isolated and no one could ever understand me, which is why it's still like there are scrapes of that, like sprinkles of that here and there, where I'm still like, every time people like, no, you're like incredibly fucking predictable and you act exactly like we all thought you would act. I'm like, huh? What? Nuh-uh. I am like an undiscernible mysterious mind over here. And they're like, you're literally not. You like are you're like as predictable as a traffic light. And I'm like, homie, what are you saying to me? And so the fact that like my ability to like get in like my own head, and as a kid it was like it's because I'm smarter than everyone. And now I'm like it's because I'm stupider than everyone. I don't know when the self-hatred switch flicked on. I wish it wouldn't. I wish it would go back down.
Yeah, I know I feel like these past 2 episodes we've really just been like kind of doing whatever the fuck. Like we're just here to have a good time. Like it's fun. But I know we were like, or not even talking about this. I like texted you one thing where I was like, I feel like no one else is really gonna like care that much about like the content of this episode, but it's so fun to me and it's so interesting, and we're just living for ourselves.
If you just want to put something on the background and like just to hear voices, so it sounds like you have people in the house while you clean your room or do your taxes, then do your taxes by all means.
That's what we're for.
Use
the
me.
podcast you listen to when you do your taxes.
Pick me.
That's our tagline.
Love me. As my Aquarius nature demands you.
Yes.
Please.
Yes. Yeah, that's all. I guess that's like all I have for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope this was like somewhat interesting.
Outside of me specifically. If any of you wanted to know more about me.
Yeah, maybe you'll find someone, like maybe someone will be like, wait, that's my chart.
Like, that's why I can't stand that bitch.
Yeah. It's like, oh, this makes so much sense. Yeah,
we got a two-faced special girl over here. Who could have seen this coming? Not
that Gemini moon coming out. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed and found this interesting. And yeah, thanks for listening. I had a lot of fun with this episode.
I did too. Because it was all about me. No shit. I'm just like, oh, more please.
You're like, tell me more. Okay. Okay. And we're done. All right. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.